What's your favorite type of play to run in the IFL?
Throwing it long.
Probably universal, whether it's the IFL or not, huh?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to Loftside Bantr. On today's show, we are going to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals, which ended last night. The Florida Panthers are back-to-back champions. We have our weekly Massachusetts Pirates interview with quarterback Kenji Bahar, who had an excellent game the other night and set a Pirates record for the longest passing touchdown ever. We'll also visit some other sporting news, such as J.J. Spaun winning the U.S. Open and Oakmont. The course that they played on fought back very hard during the last few rounds. And we'll look at two of the most lopsided trades I've seen. One in the NBA involving the Memphis Grizzlies and the Orlando Magic. And then the Boston Red Sox trading Rafael Devers to the San Francisco 49ers. We'll have some other exciting Loftside creative media news as well. And just like I say every time, you can visit us at www.loftsidebanter.com. That's loftsidebanter.com. Email address is loftsidebanter@gmail.com. And then you can look on Apple, YouTube, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all those places you get your podcasts. You can find us on there. Just surf Loftside Banter. And with that, let's get into the countdown and get right into the show.
We are on in 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to Loftside Banter. This is your host, Andrew Diamantopoulos, and on today's show, we're going to do our weekly Massachusetts Pirates conversation. This week, we have Kenji Bahar, the starting quarterback for the Massachusetts Pirates. We'll talk about the Stanley Cup and how the Florida Panthers have just won back-to-back Stanley Cup titles, and how Brad Marchand basically brought them there for most of the way. We'll involve some guests with that. We'll involve the first couple of Bruins hockey, Sir Daniel and Christina. A crazy ending to the U.S. Open and new U.S. Open champion J.J. Spaun. And then we're going to look at a couple of trades that happened. One in Major League Baseball involving the Red Sox, which was not good, especially from my point of view. And then one in the NBA between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Orlando Magic. But we'll start off with that U.S. Open real quick and kind of go over that last round. We had kind of talked about it after round one, and that a lot of people said the course wasn't that difficult, and that 19 people at even or under par was a surprising amount, including myself. I wanted to see Oakmont fight back. I wanted to see the struggle from professionals. I wanted to see how these guys that just dominate this game, Scotty Scheffler and all them, really struggle and how they overcome hey, getting a bogey wasn't a bad score for some of the holes that were there, especially the last round with the freak storm that came up or the rainstorm that happened. You know, they had a rain delay. They basically had to stop halfway through and then get back started at about 5:40 p.m. Eastern time. And by then, they had to have groundskeepers remove water from the 18th hole and a whole bunch of fairways. It was not the same course. And then J.J. Spaun, who ended up winning with the only person under par for the entire event, all 4 rounds, one person finished under par, and that was -1. So it's not like he blew them out of the water. It was a 2-stroke win, and he made a miraculous putt on 18 to secure it. He could have 2-putted. He ended up doing it in 1. We had controversies where people were landing near the a flooded fairway and were asking for different drops, which were denied. There's weird rules that go into golf and all that stuff. If you're standing in one spot and water is coming up through the ground, then you're allowed to move it. But if you're putting pressure down, then you're not allowed to move it. And that was the whole kind of controversy of the rule and everything else like that. So it was entertaining to say the least. as I mentioned before, I wanted to see these professionals struggle a little bit so that way I can go, oh, well, maybe I got a chance to be, a decent enough golfer. I don't, but at least in the time that you're watching it, you can think it. Tee shots were hitting the fairway and just stopping. They weren't rolling. But back to J.J. Spaun, who bogeyed 5 of the first 6 holes in the final round. On the second, his ball hit the flag and spun off the green. He had a terrible lie on the third hole. And then when he actually made the turn, his scorecard read 40. That means he had 31 more shots in 9 holes to make par for the day. At that turn, he was down 3 shots as well. That's when the rain came. This is going to sound weird, but this has kind of been Spawn's leap year, and I don't mean it like there's an extra day in his year. He just wasn't, he was not necessarily considered a top golfer on the tour. He has kind of done these things this year to show that he can win tournaments. His first tournament win was at 31 years old, so a little bit later in a career. He basically boiled it down to just having perseverance, just having to dig deep and having to overcome the same things that everybody else is dealing with the weather and everything else. He had to make better choices and looking for better recovery shots when he needed them and everything else like that. He, at 3 o'clock in the morning, was out at a CVS or Walgreens getting medicine for his sick daughter. And then at the end of the day, he hit a 64-foot putt to win the tournament. Now, again, he could have 2-putted it, but he said he didn't want to play defensive. He wanted to just be aggressive and go at it. A lot of these greens at Oakmont are uphill, and then you want to make sure that you're in that uphill position, because if you're shooting downhill, obviously for any golfer that knows, if you're shooting downhill and you put a little too much juice behind it, it's gone. So he had to look for all these uphill battles and everything else like that. And a lot of people were very scared about the uphill putts, because if you went past the hole on your uphill putt, then you had a downhill putt right after that. And again, a little intimidating is how this course kind of played itself out. So a huge congratulations to J.J. Spaun. I think where he had been positioned all from Thursday through Sunday, I think he deserved to win it. He was right there. He would go down, he would go up, he would fight back and everything else. So a well-deserved win for J.J. Spaun. I might be heading out to the links on Sunday, and if I could break anywhere close to 100, we're in good shape. So again, a phenomenal ending to a great tournament, and a course that is considered one of the toughest, even for the best players in the world. Now we'll shift over to baseball, and we'll take a look at this Rafael Devers trade. Being a Red Sox fan, I posted early on how terrible this deal was for the Boston Red Sox. You had a guy that was so bad at the beginning of the year, has turned it around, has become, if not your best hitter, one of your best hitters. Still very young, a cornerstone piece. He's 28. He's batting .272. He had 15 home runs in 73 games for Boston this season. You had just swept the New York Yankees, and he hit a home run that day as well. He's been highly productive for his career with 214 home runs, a 3-time All-Star. He won the Silver Slugger in 2021. We know of the trouble that the Red Sox and Rafi Devers had early in the season. You brought in a guy in Alex Bregman and basically told Rafi Devers, you're going to play DH this year, which he had a problem with. He wanted to play third base. Not the best third baseman out there. Okay, can understand it's been your position. You signed this long-term deal. They told you you're the cornerstone of the franchise, and now they're moving you around. Fine. But now you're going to DH where you only have to hit. You got to do half the job and make the same amount of money. But I digress on that fact. Then Tristan Cassius gets hurt, and they start mentioning to you that, hey, you could go play first base. And you said, no, I'm not going to do it. You told me to put the glove away this season. I understand from his perspective. I do. I understand from his perspective why it's upsetting to be told, hey, you're the cornerstone of this franchise. Oh, by the way, we're moving you away from third base and what you do. Oh, hey, we told you you weren't going to play the field this year. Now, all of a sudden, we need you to play first base because of injuries. Now, for a guy that is making that much money, from my perspective, sitting here at this desk, you should do what the team needs you to do. And that's because you make a boatload of money, and we're all going to sit here and say you made a ton of money and you should be doing what the franchise needs. I can see it from his perspective. I can. That he's upset that they've been kind of telling him one thing, doing another thing, asking for something else, asking for this, asking for that, everything else like that. My thing and what I was upset about, especially when this first happened, was how little you got back. And there's been a whole bunch of different things that have happened since this trade has gone down. For one, reported that the Red Sox didn't shop him around. It was the San Francisco Giants. They figured out what the deal was going to be and they traded him. They basically told him to get off the plane so he could go report to San Francisco. Who knows how accurate that is? So from there, you're limiting yourself to what you can get back when you're only working with one team. You're not shopping him around. You're not whatever. Now, at one point during the season, the owner went out to Kansas City to talk to Rafael Devers about playing first base and, understanding all this. We didn't hear much of that meeting, but when the owner is coming out on the road to talk to you, which does not happen, when that's happening, it's one of those things that it's a big deal. And I don't think they would have looked at this if John Henry or whatever ownership person this was went to him and said, hey, could you do this? And he agreed to do it. We wouldn't be having this conversation because the owner would go back and say, hey, we don't need to do anything about it. Let's just be done with it. But I don't think the wording back and forth worked out very well because they basically went back and said, there had to have been at some point in time a conversation where John Henry had said, you know what, enough's enough. So I don't necessarily blame Breslow completely. I don't necessarily blame anybody else completely. But the return that you got for a Rafael Devers was minuscule. And I'll go over those people in a few minutes, but it was not a good return. And you're banking on some players that haven't shown it, at least in a market like San Francisco, which is still a bit smaller than Boston, at least at the fanaticism towards their baseball team anyway. He seemed very unhappy to be here. And if you're saying, hey, we're going to move you, or, hey, this is what's going to happen, because it didn't seem like he knew what was coming, and he didn't seem to have wanted to ask for a trade or anything like that. If it's that big of a problem, I understand moving him. I understand that, but the return has to match that. The Red Sox I've seen people post this a couple of times on a bunch of different social media. They have the 3 worst trades in baseball history, according to what was the return. Babe Ruth, Mookie Betts, and now Rafael Devers. That's not like one. Okay, you made the Babe Ruth trade. Listen, we've won a title. I say we. The Red Sox have won a championship since then. It's whatever. Okay, we don't need to look at the curse of the Bambino and everything else like that. It was a thing that they had for years. It was the reason they couldn't win. It was, oh my God, I can't believe you would be caught doing that. Whatever. We can scratch that off the list and go, that was so long ago, it's whatever. Mookie Betts still comes back to haunt you right now, whether that's playing him or the success the Dodgers have had since that trade and everything else. You've kept almost nothing you got from that trade. It was atrocious. It was not a very good trade. A cornerstone person, you didn't want to pay him the money. That's, again, an ownership thing. Now you sign Rafael Devers and said, hey, this is the guy we're going to build around, and this is who it is, and this is what we're going to do. Great. Now you traded him. And the one thing I can give them credit for is they got the salary off the books. And if that was the whole purpose of it, I understand, to get the salary off the books and to hopefully have these young kids produce. And we see ups and downs from, Meyer and Roman Anthony and everything else like that. But you've completely taken his salary off the books. Fine, great, awesome. That's the win out of this. Now, as for the pieces, the first one is Kyle Harrison, who has made 39 big league appearances. 35 of them are starts. To date, posting a 4.48 ERA, so it's high ERA, and a 2.87 strikeout to walk ratio. So he is striking out people at almost 3-to-1 clip. The ERA needs to come down, obviously. He mostly throws mid-90s fastballs from one of the lowest release points in the majors. Again, I don't know if that means anything or not, but it's something in a scouting report. Jordan Hicks, who comes over, 28, was a starter, sucks as a starter. You can look back at all of his stats over the last few seasons. He's sucked as a starter. So if he's going to put him in the bullpen and be a long relief guy, all right, maybe you'll get something out of him. But he's above average on sinkers and sweepers. He has enough control to envision him being a good reliever once he's back from the IL, because he's been out since June 3rd with inflammation in his right big toe. So he's not available right now. Like, the contract is what they sent back. You had to take on his contract, and I'm going to try to look up and see what that is. He's making $11 million a year to not pitch as a starter very well. And again, you had to get back some sort of shit value, and realistically you did. We'll see what happens with him. Fine, whatever. Next is James Tibbs III. He was the number 13 pick in last year's draft. Coincidentally, that made him the highest drafted Florida State player ever since Buster Posey, who is the GM of the San Francisco Giants. Tibbs impressed scouts by showing consistent growth both statistically and physically. He spent his first full season in an age-appropriate Northwest League, batting .245 with 12 home runs, and had nearly as many walks as strikeouts in 56 games. Okay. Came in, was able to put up a decent average, hit for some power, and get about as many walks as he does strikeouts. All right, he can get on base. He was still in high A, so he wasn't even in double A ball yet. And that may be fine, because, again, he just was drafted last year. Typically, you want to make sure that these guys develop good habits, whatever. So he may be in a 2026 big league debut if he can. So, again, this is the highest ceiling guy that you have, and he hasn't blown the cover off the ball or really blown anybody away, but he was about the 4th or 5th prospect in the Giants system. Fine. The last guy is James Bello. James Bello. He's a righty. He's a pitcher. He has yet to make a single pitching appearance outside of a complex league. In 8 appearances, none of them traditional starts this year, he amassed a 2 ERA and a 9.33 strikeout to walk ratio. So again, very small sample size. He didn't make the cut to be in the top 30 ranking of the Giants system, but he has a quality slider apparently, and maybe the Red Sox know something we don't with him, that he can come in and be a middle reliever someday in a few years. But he is so far down on that prospect list that nobody knows anything. And to me, this is one of those, let's throw it against the wall and see if it sticks type of situations. Rafael Devers was introduced to the media in San Francisco, said he'd play anywhere, it'd be fine. It was one of those things that, I didn't want to be, thrown out there and have to change positions that quickly and stuff like that. But, I'll work on whatever the Giants need me to do. He clearly had some disdain for the Red Sox, which, again, we can either agree with, disagree with, whatever. If he didn't want to be here, he didn't want to be here. You shot yourself in the foot by not shopping it around at least a little bit. I think you just wanted to get everything out of the way, be done with it, fine. But you got to get something of value back now. You are on the best stretch, and I think this had to play into it. You just went through the best stretch, winning 5 games in a row. I think they ended up winning 6 before losing last night 8-0. And again, you're winning games 2-1, 2-0, 2 whatever. So, there's just, you don't have a ton of offense. You don't have a ton of people producing right now. And I think them going through that stretch, hey, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and be done with it. Time will tell. Okay? Time will tell with all of this. From the initial reaction and the initial look at all the players that are there and everything else like that, it seems like a pretty poor return. They recalled Nate Eaton. Doesn't really move the needle for anybody. Wilmer Abreu is going to be on a rehab assignment for Worcester, so he'll be back hopefully sooner rather than later. we'll see what happens. But now there's no excuse for them to go out and say, hey, we need to get X, Y, Z for next season. You have a decent rotation that has players that can be successful. Walker Buehler has not been great. Again, we saw that last year before he went through playoffs where he was unstoppable. Hunter Dobbins has been better than what people had thought. Garrett Crochet has been lights out. I just wish we could get more wins for him. Lucas Giolito has still a pretty high ERA, but 3-1. All right, work some kinks out, whatever the case may be. We just got to see. Brian Bayo has pitched fairly well since coming back. So, I mean, you have a decent rotation. You do. You have some injuries that can be fixed and hopefully come back and be better. Trevor Story has looked a little better, maybe not hitting for average, but has gotten a few RBI and a few home runs here or there. Duran is probably going to stay around now, so any rumors of him going elsewhere, probably not going to happen. Roman Anthony's still struggling. He has his first home run. He hit his first home run the other day, but he has 2 hits and 25 at bats. So he's got to, he's not getting on base. Marcelo Meyer, 3 home runs, 5 RBI, still batting only .214. So there are growing pains that are going to happen. You have to establish who you're going to want next season, and you're going to have to fill these gaps. It's going to be very difficult to do. I don't think they make the playoffs this year. I don't foresee a whole lot of things changing. Christian Campbell down to 226 after starting off pretty hot. He's got 6 home runs, 21 RBIs. Again, he's your everyday second baseman at this point. Again, growing pains. You got to find veterans to have a better bullpen and everything else. If you're going to just crap out now, you got to throw Aroldis Chapman out of here. You got to trade. You got to get people in here that, maybe you get some more younger prospects that you can, hey, let's grow together. It looked like it was starting to turn a corner, and then you do this. So, hey, we're on our best stretch. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Oh, he didn't want to be here. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to play first base. He didn't want to ever. Whole lot of things were said. Whether or not are true or not, it doesn't matter at this point. Rafael Devers is a San Francisco Giant. So we move on. Shifting over to the NBA and the big trade that we had this past week, and I've taken some time to think about it. I've talked to a few people. I hated it to start off with. Desmond Bane was traded from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Orlando Magic for Contavious Caldwell-Pope, a veteran that's been around for a while, Cole Anthony, who's spent 5 years with the Orlando Magic and averaged about 9.5 points a game, give or take, 4 first-round picks, the 16th pick in this year's draft, unprotected 2026, 2028, and 2030. Unprotected picks. I don't think the Orlando Magic are going to be down in the lottery anytime soon. And 4 picks is a lot to give up. We just went over with Dan and Ian that the draft is a very important thing to be able to fill in different places and stuff like that on your roster. And the Magic gave up 4 of them for the 3rd leading scorer on the Memphis Grizzlies team. John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. were the 1 and 2 on that team. What do Memphis do with John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. now? They're obviously rebuilding, or this is an absolutely rebuilding trade. But you still have 2 really good players, and these draft picks could essentially help you get those next pieces you need. So I think they probably keep both of them. They now have the money to sign Jaren Jackson Jr. to a long-term deal and not lose him in free agency. Also in that trade is a 2029 first-round pick swap, top 2 protected. So Memphis will be able to swap picks if, for whatever reason, the Magic is better. Desmond Bane is a good defender, a very good three-point shooter. So for me, I think Desmond Bain wasn't the guy that like 4 first-round draft picks go for. But the Magic seem to think that adding that three-point shooting and the intensity he brings on defense is something that they need to be able to be in the top echelon of the Eastern Conference. They were the 7th seed this year, got knocked out in the first round by the Boston Celtics. You know, it seemed like a ton, but they seem to think that that's the piece that they need to piece around Paolo Banchero and fellow forward Franz Wagner, whatever. So those are your 3 guys for the Orlando Magic that they say, hey, this is going to take us to an Eastern Conference final, maybe an NBA Finals. Bain scored 30 points in 29 different regular season games, topping the 40 mark twice this past season. His career high for three-pointers in a game is 8. The Magic haven't had anyone make 8 threes in a single regular season game in more than 4 years. So this is where they want to improve their perimeter scoring, 3-point shooting, have a little bit better intensity on defense for normally he's guarding a top scorer on another team, or at least a top guard. You know, he can guard a forward too, don't get me wrong. Steep price, though. It was a very steep price. Again, if this is the guy you've identified as going to put you over the top, fine. Desmond Bain wasn't in that conversation at the end of last year. Like, oh man, whoever picks up Desmond Bain is going to be really good next year. That was never in conversation. And maybe it's because he was in Memphis, and Memphis went through a bunch of different turmoil all last year. John Morant can't seem to stop mocking gun, can't stop mocking guns after hitting big 3-pointers and stuff like that. Not that that matters, I don't think, to anybody. I mean, maybe, it's not the best thing as a role model that you want to be doing. But again, you have to understand these are athletes. They're not, some of them aren't meant to be role models. But John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., who knows what's going to happen with them in Memphis. I have a feeling they're probably both going to stick around, and these 4 draft picks are going to be able to help out a little bit. Like I mentioned, Desmond Bain wasn't on that list of, hey, that's the missing piece. So we'll see. We'll see on that one. Again, I hated it when I first reported it. I reached out to people and said this was a theft. People should be going to Orlando and asking the Magic, what was stolen, because it just seemed like a lot. Now, going through and understanding that as a 3-and-D guy who can put up points, all right, maybe this is the guy. But once you got past Wagner and once you got past Banchero, there was nothing that the Orlando Magic had. So now you add a third kind of piece. Is he still going to average that 19.2, or is he going to fall off because of this or that, or is he going to score more? So we'll see with that. So I've softened on this. I still think it's a terrible trade just for the price that they paid. But that's looking at it from right now. Next year, if they're in the 3rd or 4th seed, all right, they've obviously improved. And, maybe there's an instance that, because, with the Pacers coming out of the East, it shows that a good, solid team around everything, you can have a legitimate shot from the Eastern Conference. I don't think the Thunder are getting any worse in the Western Conference. Again, we'll see. We'll see. It was not a very good trade when it was first reported. I've softened a little bit. From here, we'll go into our read, our sponsorship with the Massachusetts Pirates, and then we'll hear from Kenji Bahar. This segment is brought to you by the Massachusetts Pirates of the Indoor Football League. Looking for a family-friendly night out that's anything but boring? Experience the high-octane action of indoor football, where every seat makes you part of the game. With tickets starting as low as $18, even front row seats are affordable. Be a part of the excitement. If a game ball lands your way, you get to keep it. How cool is that? And then after the final whistle, stick around for an autograph session with the players for just $15. Don't miss out. This is football like you've never experienced before. Come see the game in the Songus Arena in Lowell, Massachusetts. And for ticket information, go to www.masspiratesfootball.com. Again, that's masspiratesfootball.com. Hello and welcome back to Loftside Banter, and I'm very excited to have Massachusetts Pirates starting quarterback Kenji Bahar with us today. He's also the holder of the longest touchdown pass in Pirates history, having done that the last game out. So, Kenji, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Doing great. So what kind of got you into football early on? I know you grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. So what kind of got you into playing football?
Probably like my dad. He always played football, and I always played basketball and football. So I started playing when I was about like 7. Growing up in Baltimore, I started playing basketball first, and then I started playing football, and I just took it along the way with me. I started playing in high school, and obviously it got me a scholarship to play at Monmouth University, and from there on out.
Very cool. So was there anything that playing basketball helped you in football?
I wouldn't say so much. I actually like basketball more than football. I actually wanted to go to school for. I just wasn't getting as highly recruited as I was for football, so I stuck with football.
Gotcha. So as you grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, I gotta ask you, where's the best place to get crab cakes in the city?
It's a bunch of spots. You got Jimmy's Seafood. You got Phillips. I got a little spot that nobody really know of. It's called Soul Cafe, but that's one of my personal favorite spots. But yeah, but any of those three, you wouldn't go wrong with it.
Gotcha. I love myself a great crab cake. I can't make them myself, so I always have to go find them.
Yeah, for sure.
So what made you choose Monmouth University? I know you said you got a scholarship there. Were there any other offers, or was that kind of one of the only ones?
Yeah, I had a bunch. I had probably like 10 small Division I offers, nothing really big. But actually, I chose Monmouth just because I was looking to play right away after my red shirt season. And I thought I was going to play both basketball and football, but that ain't really work out. But that was another big puff for me to go there, but just to play right away.
So you've set a ton of records there at Monmouth. Was there anything during your time there that really helped develop your game and stuff like that?
Just the coaching there. I feel like shout out to my guy, Coach Gallo. He was the recruiter from Maryland, but they let me do a lot there within like just understanding the game, changing a bunch of plays at the line, giving me the keys to the car. My last 2 years there, I think that helped me improve as a player and as a man for real.
So one of the things that I try to ask a lot of people, especially ones that have a successful college career like you did, is what's the transition like going from college into the pros? Obviously, you spent some time with the Ravens, you spent some time in the USFL, XFL, all those places, and now you're in the IFL.
Yeah.
What is the biggest transition between the two?
Just like the knowledge of the game between players, you know what I'm saying, and just the speed of it. I think that's the biggest transition from going from college to the, pro football. Because a lot of the people, they're playing the game and they've been playing just as long as you, so they have a good understanding of the game just as well, and they've been playing just as long, so their knowledge and speed of the game is just the same. So I think the biggest transition was just the speed and play of the game.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're in college and you're getting, in your upperclassmen, junior, senior year, and you get freshmen in, is there a huge learning curve for a lot of them, or can a lot of them step in and kind of contribute right away?
I mean, it just depends on the person. You put in the work, and if you because a lot of people, they got the athletic ability. It's just putting in that extra work and just understanding the game, because because at that level, a lot of people, how to play. So it's just you putting in that extra work and learning your plays and learning the playbook, which is a big thing, because a lot of the stuff is just mental. So I feel like that's the biggest transition. And that was one of the biggest transitions from me going to college to pro as well, because the playbook is just so much more intense. It's a lot of verbiage and stuff that you might not have heard of. So it's just like you just got to get on it.
Gotcha. Now, what's the biggest challenge adapting to new offenses? Obviously, you've been kind of in a couple of different leagues under different head coaches and everything else like that. You obviously had a head coach come in this year for the Pirates, kind of a few weeks ago, basically. What's the biggest challenge of adapting to those new offenses or coaching styles? Adapting to like new offense or coaching styles when you've been in a couple of different leagues and then obviously had a new head coach come in basically a few weeks ago for you guys.
I feel like just taking it week by week. once you're in these new leagues and new coaches, staff, or whatever the case may be, just getting the chemistry down with the teammates, and obviously because those are the people you out there competing and playing with. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is just getting that team chemistry down and camaraderie down with the guys, because we never played with each other before. So that's what I would say.
So what attracted you to the Massachusetts Pirates organization?
I think the level of talent that they had on this team. A lot of the guys were either NFL bounce backs or just CFL. Just I wanted to be around the guys that wanted to compete at the highest level, and a lot of these guys, been where I've been at.
What would you say your favorite moment has been with the Pirates so far?
So far, I think so far is probably, I think just getting to know the guys and just working out and stuff together. We be around each other a lot, so I just feel just being around the guys, understanding each other, and getting along with our new teammates and stuff.
Now, with the players that come in and out each week, is it difficult to get them to buy in right away, or have you found that everybody that's kind of come in throughout the season has worked out pretty well?
I think it's pretty impressive, the amount of guys that's coming in and out and just can make a tremendous impact right away. You know what I'm saying? It's not that hard to pick a play. I mean, it's kind of hard picking up a playbook and just trying to compete at a high level while learning what I have to do on this play, where I have to be. So I think it's pretty impressive with the guys Jawad got coming in and out. Whether it's week in or week out or whatever the case may be, with injuries or whatever the case may be. I think it's impressive for guys taking in all the stuff that we have.
Now, would you say that the team has kind of gelled together perfectly to put up a season high 66 points this past week?
Yeah, I mean, we should have put up more, but I think that's just another stepping stone. You know what I'm saying? It's a bunch of games left, so we have six or seven more opportunities to put up some more points.
How did it feel to break that record and throw that 49-yard touchdown pass?
I didn't even know it was a record until like a couple of days after, because the field is so small. So throwing a 49-yard touchdown, in the outdoor field is just regular. So I just thought it was a thing that happened,
Right.
fairly often. But nah, I mean it's a blessing, and especially to do it with a former teammate of mine that I played with, in the all these other leagues with. So it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that you have chemistry with him a little bit more because you've played in those other leagues, or is it just something that it just happened to be his number you called?
I think me and him have a bunch of chemistry. We played together with Houston, with the Roughnecks. I think I just know, I know the type of receiver he is, because he's been showing me for the last 3 or 4 years that type of receiver he is. His catch radius is incredible, and you just give him a chance. It's not a 50-50 ball with T.O. It's more of a 80-20 with that boy.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, with the indoor league, I've asked this to everybody that I've interviewed over the last couple of weeks. What is the biggest difference between a regular game? Obviously, there's 8-on-8 instead of 11-on-11. But is it that much faster, and is the defense that much faster that you're seeing comparative to a game outside, or an NFL game, or USFL, whatever?
No, I wouldn't say faster. I just think because the arena is so small, just getting from point A to point B in a short amount of distance, it's just the windows are tighter. I wouldn't say it's faster, but so it just makes those window throws are just a less tighter. So you got to get the ball out faster.
So you have the Tulsa Oilers coming up on Saturday. It's at home. Is there a huge difference as far as playing at home comparative to the road with an indoor league?
Not necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't say it's that much of a difference, because I mean you're not playing, you're not playing with 60,000 in a crowd, so it ain't really
right.
The crowd. It wouldn't be that much of a factor in this league.
Gotcha. What do you think the biggest misconception is with this league?
Talent. It's a bunch of talent in this league, and I feel like a lot of people don't really realize that. And I realized that, my first couple of weeks, because being in NFL, CFL, or these leagues, UFL, people are looking down on these type of leagues like the IFL, the AFL, but it's a bunch of talent in here. It's a bunch of players that's been in the NFL and stuff that trying to make their way back or just playing just because they love a game. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is talent. It's a lot of talent around this league for sure.
What's your favorite type of play to run in the IFL?
Throwing it long.
Probably universal, whether it's the IFL or not, huh?
yeah, for sure.
Now, as a quarterback, when you go through either in-game adjustments or adversity, or even make a turnover or anything else like that, how hard is it to have to put that aside or forget about maybe a game plan that's not working? How do you just forget about that and move on to the next play? How do you, because I always say this to people, even just in regular day life, you have to have, water off a duck's back. You have to forget really quickly and just move on. How hard is that in the position that you play?
I think it was a big transition, like especially playing like outdoor to indoor, because you got to realize when you're playing indoor football, like, yeah, you might be down 14, you might throw a pick or you might turn a ball over, whatever the case may be. But this game is so fast that 14 points could be a quick transition because it's an offensive game. So I think that was one of the biggest realizations I had to come with playing. And it's like, all right, I might have made a mistake, but we could turn this around quick. You know what I'm saying? A 1 minute drive on the outdoor is really like 5-6 minutes on the clock. So it's like, right. I think that's really helpful. Once you make a mistake, it's time. It's always going to be time for you to bounce back or shake back from your mistake.
So does that go for like a 2-minute drill situation here that you can just strike so quickly that do you have to look at it and be like, all right, we got to take a little bit of time off comparative to, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's more so it's like, all right, you might think it's like, all right, it's a minute left, or since it, like, even in this league, it's not really a 2-minute drill. They call it a 1 minute drill because 1 minute is a lot of time as opposed to the outdoor field.
Yeah.
Now,
what are some of the things you do outside of the football field? What's some interest that you have? What's something that somebody may not know about you?
I love to travel. I think that's when I'm not playing football. I love traveling, cooking. I like just getting out, just seeing different places that I ain't never really been to. But yeah, I love traveling. I've been to like 10, 11 plus countries now and counting. So
nice.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite country you visited?
Probably Japan.
Japan, nice.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about coaching or mentoring after your playing days, or you've not even thought about that yet?
Yeah, it's definitely been a thought. Coaching, I think, even just like kids, you know what I'm saying, whether it's like training, I did that sometimes in a couple of my off seasons, just training kids, like quarterback training, and I became fond of it. So I think that's definitely a possibility down the line for sure.
Did you play any other positions growing up, or were you primarily a quarterback?
Primarily quarterback. I played a little bit of defense, like Pot Warner days, a little bit of safety, but that not really like getting into like high school, strictly quarterback.
So you guys have won 3 straight so far. Like I said, obviously you have a game on Saturday. What's the atmosphere in the locker room now that you've kind of won 3 straight and, gone through a little bit of growing pains maybe early on in the season, but now you kind of seem to be clicking?
Nothing really. We try to take it week by week, but, hopefully we can make it 4 in a row and 5 in a row, you know what I'm saying? So we just trying to just take it week by week.
What is some of the bigger differences that you've seen in opponents as far as their defenses? Is there anything that they've thrown at you that wasn't something you were expecting, or are they all basically kind of, hey, this is the film that we've watched and this is what we know it's coming?
It's as far as just any opponent?
Yeah.
You saying?
Yeah.
No, I think it's especially like with like the 8-man, because you only have 8 people on offense and defense, so it's only a select few amount of defenses and looks that you'll get, but I think it's pretty the same as far as going week by week. You're either going to see like a 3-high, 2-high look, Mac blitz. You know what I'm saying? It's not as many covers that you can see, but it just depends on the way that they're showing you the different disguises they're trying to disguise the offense. But I think it's pretty consistent throughout the league.
As far as anything part of your game, is there anything that you're focusing on, you're trying to improve, or anything else like that?
I would say just being, a little bit more consistent, or like balance, not consistent, a little bit more balance, whether using my legs and throwing a ball, just making plays.
How?
Because
I'm sorry.
Go
Go ahead.
I was just saying with the short field, 5 yards a pop, that goes a long way.
Now, how
just,
often do you get to run in this league? I mean, it seems like it's a very pass happy league at times, but how often are you able to get outside the pocket and make something happen?
I mean, hopefully I'm not doing that as much, because if I'm running around, I mean my line not blocking. So but any chance I get to make a play with my feet, it's always up in there.
And what would you say the goals are for the rest of the season for the team?
Win out. Win each week, take it week by week instead of just looking, for that goal down the line, which is obviously to be in a championship game. Just take it week by week.
Perfect. Now, again, you guys are on a 3-game winning streak. You have the Tulsa Oilers on Saturday at 7:05 at home. I wish you the best of luck in that game, and I wish you the best of luck. I know you got a meeting to go to, so I didn't want to keep you too long, but I appreciate your time today, and again, I wish you the best of luck the rest of the way, and hopefully we'll be able to do a face-to-face one of these days.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you again.
All right, have a good one.
All right, you too.
Welcome back into Loftside Banter, and I was able to get the first couple of hockey to come back on and talk about the Stanley Cup Finals, which the Florida Panthers have won back-to-back Stanley Cup titles. So we have Sir Daniel here and his better half, Christina. How are you guys doing today?
Good. I told you, by the way. I told you that they were going to win.
Yes, you did. You did say that. So Florida Panthers obviously looked great towards the end. It was a good 4 games out of the series, back and forth. And then Florida just decimated them the last 2 games. It didn't look that close.
Yeah.
I said depth was going to be a thing. Depth turned out to be the thing. And then goaltending. Here in Boston, we have a lovely gentleman by the name of Michael Felger, who one day decided to say goaltending doesn't matter. And then the very next day asked the question, and I'm going to turn this into a Bruins thing really quick before we go into how we feel about the Panthers winning. He turned it into then, well, what if the Oilers came calling for Jeremy Swayman and offered a package and stuff like that? So what do we think? If the Oilers came calling and said, hey, Jeremy Swayman, we're going to do that to try to put us over the top, what are your feelings if the Bruins decided to entertain that?
First of all, with the overall thought of it, and not specifically Swayman, I do believe that goaltending matters, but I don't believe that you have to have the best goalie in the league to win the Stanley Cup, because that's been proven a million times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mike's out of his mind. But so me personally, and Christina, you chime in. I think that if they came for Swayman, the way that the Bruins are right now, I think that they might entertain it just to go into complete rebuild. Mm-hmm. I would love to keep Swayman. I know he performed like crap last year, but that's the going rate for a goalie. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Goalies win championships. Look at Tim Thomas. He was able to win it for us. We wouldn't have won that cup if it wasn't for him. He played insanely better than what he normally would. And I think Swayman has a chance to come back and prove himself. So, I mean, I do think, though, if you get the right package, then maybe. But they're not going to give up everything for a goalie.
Right. I don't think they'll give up all that stuff. I mean, you're probably looking at a package of something like Zach Heyman, who is injured, but is one of their top scorers, at least played pretty well during the regular season. Prospects and draft picks, probably not that high, but if they're going to keep Connor McDavid happy in Edmonton, and we kind of talked about this, Dan, you and I, has Connor McDavid, I mean, he's the best player on the planet right now, and he just can't seem to get over the hump. Has he run into just those teams that are just better than him? Obviously, having the two best players on the ice isn't something that helped them win. I mean, him and Draisaitl are by far the two best players in that finals, and they can't get it done. They're just not deep enough. So, is Connor McDavid going to leave Edmonton? He did say at the end that he would have to talk to his agent about, what the next steps are, which is not something you want to hear if you're the Edmonton Oilers.
No, the only place that he'll go is probably Florida to win. I think he'll get. I think like Edmonton's a good team, and obviously they are good. They made it to the Stanley Cups. It's just Florida is stacked.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and we talked about it. I more was thinking of it in the frame of, okay, he's the generational player. You want to be known as that? I'm sorry, Connor. Jesus, Wayne Gretzky. I'm trying to think of names again. Wayne Gretzky didn't lose. Wayne Gretzky won. They didn't have like a dominating defense, so stop blaming your defense and your goaltending. Sidney Crosby has won multiple championships.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Orr, like back in the day, won multiple championships. I don't care what your talent level is. You cannot be the person that everybody says, "Oh, you're one of those top players," without winning, and you're not doing what you need to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
You need to carry the team. You can't be blaming your goaltender or going later on to your agent going, "I don't know if this is the place for me," because they can't help you. No, right. You're the player. You need to help them win.
Mm-hmm. I have a bad feeling that if there's going to be any rumblings, there's going to be talk of Toronto being a player for his services, and I like Toronto where they're at, and that's not winning, because that's the only thing I can hang my hat on every year for hockey is that Toronto's not going to win. But
they collapse.
Oh, they absolutely do. They do every year, which is a joy for me. It's the only joy I had this season, at least. But they played the Panthers the best. They played them 7 games, and it was close. So I mean, It's not like they're too far away. But I have a feeling we'll probably hear a lot about McDavid leaving. Edmonton has great fans, great atmosphere, and all that stuff. It's tough to lose 2 years in a row, but I'm going to go over how Florida built their roster. They're making just every right move you can possibly imagine, and some of these names are going.
What that's like.
Yeah, I know, right? That's the one thing here in Boston that just hasn't worked out. And how did it feel for you guys for Florida to win? How do you feel about them winning? And then to see how well Marchand played in all of the playoffs, let alone just the Stanley Cup. I mean, at one point we had talked about he might be a Conn Smythe guy up there, but I mean, Sam Bennett definitely deserved it with the amount of goals that he had. 15 goals in the playoffs, I think it was.
Oh, he played insane.
He played himself into a great contract.
I think about it through the lens of a Bruins fan, right? I was happy for it. I was happy for him, but I think in reality, I was happy that it's almost like salt in the wound to the Bruins organization.
Yep.
It wasn't that he won the Stanley Cup. He was, I'm not going to say the deciding factor, but he was instrumental in them winning. He played like a man on fire. Mm-hmm. And why couldn't he do that with the Bruins? It wasn't because he didn't want to do it with the Bruins. It was because their organization blows right now. Mm-hmm. Well, there's no other way for me to put it. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Sam Bennett definitely deserved the MVP. He played insane. But like Marchand, he played third string. He played where he was. He's 37 years old. He's gotten slow. He's got the bad hips, bad knee. But he looked so much faster on the ice than he did with the Bruins. And you put somebody on the center that he's used to playing with, like someone like Bergeron that has skill, he plays better. So he ended up scoring in all the playoffs, he scored 10 goals, 10 assists in 23 games.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. That would have not happened with the Bruins because there's no support for him here. So good for him. I'm happy for him. It's the only person I was rooting for the Panthers to win was him. Other than that, I would have been in Edmonton going all the way because I do think Connor McGregor or McDavid deserves it. I mean, he's a good player. He's a great player.
I think Conor McGregor would be an interesting hockey player.
Yeah.
For
McDavid.
real, he would win. Conor McGregor. But no, the only reason why I had any rooting for Florida was because of the Martian thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have wanted Edmonton to win it. But yeah, I didn't even think about it, Andy, when you brought it up to me. Oh, sorry. So when you brought up to me about Connor McDavid being, is it a product that he's not winning, a product of the teams that he's going up against? I say no. Maybe that is the answer, but then you're not a generational player. You're not a Wayne Gretzky. You're not, you're not an or Esposito. You're not in that ilk. That's just how it works.
Yeah. It's kind of salt in the wound for me to see the things that were posted afterwards and stuff like that. The "Thank You Boston" chant. I don't know if you guys saw that clip. They're standing on a balcony, and they're Florida fans, Miami fans. Let's just put it what it is. Miami, Florida fans are yelling "Thank You Boston," and you see Marchand, chanting back and stuff like that. Look, he deserves to be happy. He deserves to get another cup. I'm glad that he did. I still agree with the trade. I would still do it. You're going to get a first round pick out of it. But you watched him play so well. He posted thank you to all the other kind of players that teams gave away to Florida to build this team. It's just one of those things that you just kind of like, you audibly go, ugh.
You think,
he would have retired here.
Yeah.
And so that's why I can't have ill feelings towards him. Like no matter what happens, he would have retired here if the Bruins had, let's face it, wanted him to retire here.
Mm-hmm.
But I still agree with the trade. I'm with you. I still agree 100% with what they did.
Do you think like the Florida coaches, when they were like, they got Marchand, that they were like, are you serious? Like, kind of like, did we really just get like Marchand, like a 37-year-old guy? Like, what do you think? Like, their coaches probably were sitting in the locker room, like, great, like, and then all of a sudden here he is playing like he's 20 again.
I think they probably had some reservations just because he was coming off an injury and you didn't really know what you were going to get. But you also had to look at the fact that the Bruins sucked all year. So, all right, he's a veteran. He's been here before and he's been to a couple of cup finals. He's won one. All right, let's throw him out on the third line like we did. All he can do is, up that line a little bit. I mean, he still had skill. You saw it all year when he was in Boston. He just didn't have anybody around him. And the people he did have around him are the people that were trying to be players that obviously didn't pan out for their first year and stuff like that. It's just one of those things that was like, all right, he can only improve the third line. If you were putting him on your first line, all right, maybe you're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, for sure. And with his next contract, I'm assuming that he doesn't want to retire with his next team or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that he wants to be a quote unquote lesser piece, and I would hope that the team bringing him in has a spot for him, similar to what Florida had. Like, he'll probably be a second line player in any team, but he can't carry the load. He's just too old. I mean, let's face it.
Right. So I looked up the Florida Panthers and their roster and how they basically built their team. Alexander Barkov, the best two-way forward right now in the league. Now that Bergeron's gone, they drafted. Cool. They acquired Sam Bennett, your Conn Smythe Trophy winner. They acquired him from Calgary for a prospect and a second-round selection. Not a high price for what they got out of him. Jasper Borquist was a Bruin at one point. 13 playoff games. Again, not a huge factor, but AJ Greer, Bruin at one point. Brad Marchand, traded for him this year.
I actually had forgotten the Greer thing. Like, I mean, I knew he was a Bruin, but I didn't piece it together of him in Florida.
Yeah, again, not a huge factor in a lot of stuff, but 2 goals, 1 assist in 16 playoff games. He played a majority of the games. Like I said, Marchand. Thomas Nosek, former Bruin. Sam Reinhart, they got from Buffalo for goalie Devin Levy and a first-round pick. That worked out great.
Yeah, what does it say though? It's like, in these players on their own, you might have been like, all right, well, Bennett went for kind of nothing. It's now the culture in Florida is the reason why they're all doing well. The culture, the leadership, what have you, and this is what I've been like complaining about for the last 2 seasons in the Bruins organization.
Right.
I don't know how you change that, but
Get a new front office.
Yeah, well,
all right, we do know how to change that, but
it's just not happening anytime soon.
You're right.
Yeah.
So Matthew Tkachuk had come out and told everybody that he played through a torn abductor muscle off the bone and a sports hernia. Christina, this is going to be up your expertise. How hard is that
I
to
wouldn't be
play
able
through?
to do a sit-up. I'm thinking pretty hard. I mean, think about any time you go
Well,
sit or
everything's based on your
and
core,
it's
right?
all your core muscles.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Can't be fun.
Yeah, he basically said, "Oh yeah, this is what I had, and oh by the way, it was the Stanley Cup, so that's why I'm playing."
What was that? His injury? Because he was injured earlier in the season too. Is that the lingering?
That's the lingering
It
one
was the same injury, right?
from the Four Nations. Yeah, he got injured during the Four Nations. Yep.
Right.
So I mean, hockey players are just obviously a different breed, but for Matthew Tkachuk, and again for as well as he played, it didn't seem like it bothered him all that much. But I mean, again, we know hockey players, and they'll lace him up no matter what.
Yeah. It's almost like it's almost a meme on its own. Like if you don't have like a dislocated shoulder and a torn knee meniscus, and you made it through the Stanley Cup Finals, you must not have played.
Right. Exactly. I mean, so we had talked about Sam Bennett and how well he played. He was on a $4.4 million contract this year. He's 29. We had kind of talked about in previous episodes that we think that he would be a big pickup for the Bruins in the offseason. He's probably doubled that salary. He's probably in the 8-9 range now, just simply because whatever. Is that a price that you would pay for Sam Bennett?
Yes, because they're gonna need to sign free agents to tide themselves over until they can draft a new crop of players, and 5 years from now
Then that's just talent wasted because he's not there's nothing to help support him. What do we have that's going to support him to be successful?
Well, I agree, but I don't care how Sam Bennett feels.
Right.
No, I
If
know,
we can get him, he's going to bring other players.
Yeah. Andy, I don't know if you know this, but how long is that core team in Florida still together? Are they all just starting contracts with them, or are some of them on the end?
Bennett is a free agent. Let me see here. They have Marchand, Bennett, Nico Sturm, who was injured for the playoffs. Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, Nico Sturm, Thomas Nosek. One more time. Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, Thomas Nosek, Nico Sturm are the main guys off of the roster that contributed at all this season. So Nico Sturm, I think, came over in a trade, and I don't think he played that much. But those are the main guys. So Tkachuk's still there. Bobrovsky's still there. Your defense is still there. Actually,
Barkov, I imagine, is still there.
Yeah, let me look at defensemen. I don't think I had defensemen on there either. But Aaron Ekbald, all right, so that's one of the top defensemen. Nate Schmidt, and there was one other guy that was coming up too, or maybe not. So those are the main guys.
I would take I would take Bennett. I would take said player off said team, like somebody from a good team that's willing to know that the Bruins aren't winning a Stanley Cup next year. Or Austin Matthews. Yeah, you just need players at this point, especially forwards.
So now, kind of going back towards the Bruins and stuff like that, the one question I have that I've wondered for a while is we see these teams that have like a Connor McDavid. I realize he's the number 1 overall pick. Draisaitl, I realize he was a top 10 pick. Kachuk and Bennett and all these players that were picked in the top 10. When we have these drafts or these prospects that teams bring in, why is it that they develop into these great scorers and we have all these great, lines that you can find a couple of 30-goal scorers? We have Pastrnak, don't get me wrong. But that's one guy.
Right.
And somehow,
who also wasn't the first pick overall.
Right.
And neither Brad Marchand, I think, was a second rounder. Patrice Bergeron was like later on in the first round, if not a second rounder. You can do this. The Bruins are not, for some reason, doing this.
It seems
They have
difficult.
to look at the development.
Yeah, I mean, do we not have the guys that are in the minor leagues teaching them, or are we just not finding goal scorers? Like, are they not being put in the appropriate areas?
I don't know.
Is our scouting falling apart? Like it starts right from the very early stages.
Yeah,
I don't know if Christina it was on the one that we were talking about. Even the assistant coach is on the NHL roster at this point, but obviously those coaches come from the farm league, and I don't think you were on the podcast.
No, I think it was
Christina.
you and Dave.
Yeah, and we were talking about they kept all the assistants. They kept all the people that couldn't develop the players over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
I honestly think they should have just again started fresh, but
yeah, I agree with you. I think they probably should have started fresh, and then now you had to sign Sweeney for 2 more years because it seemed like nobody wanted to come here,
Right.
on a lame duck GM, which I totally understand. I mean,
I understand it too. Yeah.
but
the coach though is gonna, if like Sweeney, this isn't gonna come together in a year. I would think Sweeney would be let go, and so would Cam, but like no one wants a position here because it's not going to be a long-term situation, So if you're a player in your prime, are you going to want to play for a team that's not going to get there during your career? Because ultimately, every athlete, regardless if you are a hockey player or track, you want to either like make it to the Olympics and you want to win the cup.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So your ultimate goal is to be a champion.
You do have a good point, Christina. I think if we were talking like the 90s, and hockey's always been a little bit different, but like the 90s when free agency, was starting, and even like early 2000s, it always did seem whoever was offering the most money would be where a free agent would go. I think it's swinging back the other way now. I think players are like, I want a place where I'm comfortable.
Again, I don't want to take away from Florida. Florida built a team. They've built the team really well over the last few years. Their GM that's been in place has made the right moves, been able to trade draft capital to get the things to help them win now, and yet still be able to put some sort of minor league system together that if a player goes down, They got some people to step in. Granted, they're not the same players, but they just...
Right.
Just look good.
It's not like the last two years that Florida's been good. The year before that, they I think that was the year that they beat the Bruins, if I'm not mistaken, in the first round. But they lost in the finals or later on. Yeah. The year before that, they won the President's Trophy. So this isn't like this same like group of players,
right?
Like had a 2-year like fluke. They have built the program, and the program is continuing to go. And it's like Christina asked me a question about the players who are leaving or coming back or whatever. It doesn't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
And this isn't a salary cap league, so they're doing something right.
Right. And then I think the projected salaries are meant to go up, but you can sign in the NHL, I think you can sign somebody for more and not have as much of a cap hit. It's kind of, again, I'm not a salary cap expert, but they were talking about it after, who's coming back, who's still available, who's whatever. And, then they got into the whole income, tax thing, which is that players want to go to Florida because there's not as much taxes, so you'll take less money.
Yeah, somebody did say that. Right. Well, I mean, but that has been in this league. That's been there forever, because if you're playing in Canada, you're on a completely different pay scale and tax scheme than in the U.S. So people say that. I don't necessarily believe that's completely true.
They're looking for anything because it's been 3 years in a row that they've been in the Cup Finals. So
you're right. Yes.
I don't know. We'll see. And again, we'll see what happens. For us being here in Boston, obviously, the Bruins have always been upper echelon of this city and stuff like that, and they've always been the blue collar team that people went to see and stuff like that. And it's hard to see them do so well, break records, go to a couple cups, and only win one in this span, which with the core you had is just it sucks because you had
an underachievement.
Yep.
Of epic proportions.
Yeah.
But that is the Bruins organization. That's been the Bruins organization since its inception. Orr and that team should have won more than two. It's just there's always some non-hockey related reason that something gets in the way of the Bruins. And it used to be ownership not wanting to pay any players, and now it's just bad management.
Yeah, bad player development and management. I mean, the 70s was they were drunk all the time. It was the thing, right? They just partied so much.
Maybe.
All right.
I mean, they're in Boston.
So do we think Florida's here again next year?
Yep.
Pretty definitive answer there.
You mean, yep, it's they're winning?
I think they're back in the Stanley Cup Finals, I bet. I think they're just that good.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think Andy's right. I think they've faced a few tough components, but I mean, they're not losing a bunch of their core. All these other teams.
I agree with you. Coming out of the East, the Eastern Conference, I don't see a team because
a lot of the teams that made the finals or made it into the playoffs,
right,
they
are going to lose players
for that year. They all put all of their ducks in for this year.
Yeah, Toronto is likely going to take a slight step back this next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that was the one that competed with them kind of the most. Who'd they play in the Eastern Conference Finals?
Oh, was it the Hurricanes?
Yeah.
Hurricanes. They're always around, but I can't ever take them seriously.
They don't have any tough tough players on their team that are.
Well, that's because their coach is always trying to intimidate them with his awesome muscles.
Yeah, I mean, true. Carolina's losing their top two defensemen in Brett Burns and Dmitry Orlov. That I can see here.
The Capitals were also in the playoffs. They didn't make it out of the first round, but I don't know who they're losing. I know someone from there just retired. One of their top guys just retired or announced retirement.
Yeah, who was that? That was Oshie, TJ Oshie.
Oshie, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he didn't play all year, so I mean, you're not losing.
And they're all
they're older.
They're good and old. Yeah, I was going to be more politically correct on that, but
they're old.
Christina's
when you're in 30s in hockey, you're old.
Yeah.
Nicholas Backstrom, Oshie, we know retired. Lars Eller. Those are the three bigger ones that are gone from this team, and then from the Capitals.
Ovechkin, it might be his last year. I bet you this is his last year coming up.
So I'm still going to stick by the Bruins with the fact that if the players they picked up this year,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
they're
You're
a
right on
couple
this.
right moves away from being at least competitive towards the end of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, you're in the stew of everybody that's behind Florida.
Right. Yeah.
No.
In the East, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
Florida
will
and then
take
everybody
back
else.
your optimism.
Thank you very much
All
for
right.
stopping by.
We'll talk to you later.
All right,
All right.
thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care later. Bye.
And just like that, we kind of go over the Stanley Cup finals and Florida's back-to-back Stanley Cup winning teams. So, again, it looks like if things don't change drastically somewhere in at least the Eastern Conference, they will be back where we kind of figured they will be again. A good core still coming back. Sam Bennett, who is your Conn Smythe Trophy, again, is probably going to get a ton of money somewhere else. It depends on whether or not he wants to be there and wherever he goes, what the price is going to be. Thank you to all my guests today, the Massachusetts Pirates and quarterback Kenji Bahar, Mr. and Mrs. Hockey coming around and having a conversation about the ending of the season. And then the NHL draft's coming up. Free agency will start soon, so we'll see some changes within the next couple of weeks, probably. No matter where you are, everybody, please go to the YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, wherever you find your podcasts. Give us a like, subscribe. We are looking for sponsors for the show coming up, so every little bit helps. I really do appreciate it. No matter where you are, have a good morning, a good afternoon, a good night, and we'll see you on the next show.